Some crypto investors are claiming that this global transition will result in the greatest shift of wealth in history. Here's everything you need to know about ISO 20022 and how it has and could continue to shape the landscape of the crypto market. By the end of this video, you'll know what ISO is, what SWIFT is, what ISO 20022 is, what ISO TC 307 does, and most important, why this heavily influences the crypto market. So ISO is a global standards organization consisting of the national standards bodies of almost every country. So these national standards bodies collaborate together to set international standards for all technical and non-technical fields except electrical and electronic engineering, which are the responsibility of the IEC. These standards affect things like units of measurement and specifications for parts, tools, processes, and testing across a variety of sectors from food safety to banking communication. So the purpose is to make things much more efficient in a global economy. So banking communication, this is where ISO 20022 comes in. You might have heard an XRP maxi foaming at the mouth, mumbling something about ISO, either maniacally to himself or someone that probably doesn't care or wasn't listening. But here's what ISO 20022 is and why you should care. So who should be interested in ISO 20022? Mostly financial institutions that want to streamline their communication infrastructure and associated costs by opting for a single common language for all financial communications, whatever the business domain, the communication network, and the counterparty. ISO 20022 is targeted at these standards initiatives that are generally driven by communities of users looking for more cost-effective communications to support specific financial business processes with a particular view of facilitating interoperability with other existing protocols. Now that's a lot. To simplify, it's for banks. Banks and any financial institution active in cross-border payments, as well as market infrastructures and corporates to bank flows. So ISO is the international organization that sets global standards, and ISO 20022 is the standard that improves upon the current international financial system, more specifically the way banks communicate when making cross-border transactions. Currently, financial institutions use a variety of different data syntaxes to communicate, making the process for international transactions complex and inefficient. This upgrade will make international banking more interoperable, timely, and cheap by leveraging a single, more data-rich syntax and the latest technologies. And even though this standard was introduced in 2004 and has continually been pushed back year after year after year, SWIFT has finally put a strict deadline for financial institutions to transition to ISO 20022 by November of 2025, or they will essentially be siloed by obsolete technology. This transition officially started in 2022, and we are currently in a period of coexistence where both systems are being utilized until the old system will be left behind in 2025. But what is SWIFT and how does this relate to crypto? I promise I'm getting there. So SWIFT is the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication. It's a Belgian cooperative society providing services related to the execution of financial transactions and payments between banks worldwide. So it's basically the messaging network that all global banks use. Simpler, SWIFT is the current global bank messaging network that handles $5 trillion a day or $1.25 quadrillion a year. So as you can see here, CBPR Plus is SWIFT's program for helping banks transition from the current system to the ISO 20022 standard. So SWIFT, the organization that services the institutions that transact over $1 quadrillion a year, is enforcing the ISO standard by November 2025. And why is this so important for crypto? As a crypto researcher, I realized one of the most common utilities top projects would list in their white papers was cross-border payments. Blockchain and other distributed ledger technologies provide great innovations in the fast, secure, and cheap transfer of data, making crypto networks viable options to be part of the next global banking standard. These same type of projects usually prioritize regulatory standards, more specifically making sure they are ISO compliant over things like decentralization. This is important because most of these projects were specifically built to cater to these financial institutions, governments, and corporations like XRP, the token used by RippleNet, which aims to become the next global payment system, replacing SWIFT. Investors of these crypto projects believe the transition to ISO 20022 will result in the global financial system running on a handful of blockchain networks, handling trillions of dollars a day or quadrillions of dollars a year, accruing value to the network's underlying tokens. Hopefully now you get why the XRP guy was foaming at the mouth. Now things get really interesting when you realize that RippleNet, which is the network and business behind XRP and Ripple, is listed as a registration management group member on the ISO 20022 website along with Swift. It's also important to mention this graphic, which is believed to have been made by an XRP community member on the ISO's plans to implement specific crypto projects into the new financial system. While this was not made by the ISO, it gives some insight into the ISO crypto lore and what the crypto community has pieced together so far. This post is showing all the projects confirmed and rumored to be ISO compliant with Quant's Overledger in the middle. This article actually says that XDC, IOTA, and Algorand are also compliant as well. What I've heard is that all of these projects, including Quant and Cardano and HBAR as well, are actually just rumored to be compliant. But I think it's important to understand why these communities are usually so strongly convicted in their projects. It usually has something to do with this graph and the ISO 20022 standards. Many investors that believe this graphic has any merit also believe some of these projects could reach trillions of dollars in market cap. And many in the XRP army believe that once this is implemented, XRP will flip Bitcoin. Now, even though ISO 20022 could have massive implications for the crypto market, giving compliant projects a huge advantage, it's important to remember that this is a standard for global banking communication. So it doesn't directly affect crypto, but it has the potential to directly affect the landscape of the market. It's also important to note that many of these compliant projects break the libertarian ethos of crypto and appease to the very centralized powers blockchain enthusiasts normally oppose. So ISO is broken down into hundreds of technical committees, all specializing in different sectors of the economy. And in 2016, the founder of now the Quant Overledger system, Gilbert Verdian, founded ISO TC 307 to address global standardizations of blockchain networks. So while ISO 20022 could indirectly affect crypto in the market, it's not specifically made to address it. It's made to address banking, messaging, and the efficiencies of the global financial system. Whereas ISO TC 307 is specifically made to address the concerns of the global standardization of blockchain. So this committee released an 11-page paper on their strategic business plan, and I think it is the most interesting piece I've read on the global standardization of blockchain, but it is too long for this video, so I'm going to make another video going through ISO TC 307, their strategic business plan, and how it pertains to each of the rumored to be compliant crypto projects. Now, this video was a lot of info, so if you actually sat all the way through and enjoyed, then you are my dream subscriber. So consider subscribing and sticking around for the next ISO video. Some of these ISO compliant projects have a very bright future ahead of them. There's also a lot of very dark stuff going on in the crypto market as well. Watch this video if you want to know what I mean.